Hi, this is Vicki, and I'm here with the September 28th Time magazine with my issue of It's About Time. I'm running a few weeks late because I had a change of address and my magazines are catching up to me. So I'm starting out with the migrant crisis as a major test of European identity and unity. Hungary and others complain that the human stream reaching Europe includes not just political refugees, but economic migrants from poor nations that are not at war. It's a good bet. Global polls show that 700 million people would like to leave their country, and the door to Europe does not open every day. So some people have a legitimate reason to be upset about some migrants coming over because some of them are not fleeing countries where they're being persecuted. But the man in charge in in Germany, his name's Sigmar Gabriel, he's Germany's vice chancellor, he says that our abilities have reached their limits to help the migrants, and they were going to be closing down and having more patrols on their borders. Now, there have been many great 20th century migrations, some of which you might be very familiar with. The 1917 Russian Revolution and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire created over 5 million refugees from 1919 to 1939. More than 11 million people were brought to Germany by the Nazis to work as slave laborers, and many remained in squalid refugee camps for years after the war ended. And I'm sure this includes the millions of Jews. The UN created a refugee agency in 1950 to deal with the millions of displaced. 3 million people, I did not know this, 3 million people fled Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos in the 2 decades following the 1975 communist victories in that region. And then the Kosovo War. 9 in 10 Kosovars left the Balkan territory in 1998 to 1999, with tens of thousands escaping into Macedonia and Montenegro. So we are seeing something that's repeating past migrations, but it's getting worse because of the reasons they're having to flee. Well, that little man, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, who I think is just a little tampered, he just throws tampers, temper tantrums. North Korea announced that it upgraded and restarted its main nuclear complex at Yongbyon in an effort to improve its atomic weapons arsenal. The statement claimed North Korea already had the ability to launch nuclear weapons against the U.S. He just needs to grow up. This page has a lot of information. Subway had a horrible thing happen to them when Jared, their spokesperson for all of those years, was found to have been doing things he shouldn't be doing, and he lost a lucrative career. But the Subway co-founder, Fred DeLuca, 67, he opened the franchise's first sandwich shop at the age of 17 to fund his college tuition, has passed away. The chain now has 27,000 U.S. locations. And there are fast food farms. Some of them use the antibiotics in the animals and some don't. And just so you know where you're going to eat your food, are the ban's routine use of antibiotics, and that's Panera Bread and Chipotle. Chick-fil-A says they will ban it in the future. Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's say that they ban it in routine cases, some cases. 0 or undisclosed bans, Starbucks, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, Domino's, Sonic, Little Caesars, and Dairy Queen. That's a little scary. You might have heard of the bones of Homo naledi. They were found in South Africa. It's a proto-human, something they feel like that was buried in a way that apes would not bury their dead, and it's believed to be another type of human being from the past. Global warming's comeback. We are told in this magazine that there was a pause in the warming prior to 2010, but then it picked up again. And there's still those out there who feel like that it's not happening, but there's a lot of people out there who think that a lot of things aren't happening, and the news tells us otherwise. Keeping up with the Joneses is becoming very expensive. Look at all the brand new cars in the driveways. And cars are now, the loans for cars are now being extended past 5 years up into 8 years, which means there'll come a time with vehicles just like the housing market where people will be driving underwater. They will be owning cars that aren't even worth what they're still paying for them. Now, in my opinion, that's been going on for years, because the minute you drive off a parking lot, your car diminishes in value. And when I was a young person looking for my first car, I personally have never had a brand new car. Not that I wouldn't have wanted one, but I have a problem with paying money for something that devalues the minute I take it home. I have given birth to 3 children, and their value increased 100-fold every day they were alive, and they're still alive, and it's increasing, and I have grandchildren. There are other products that we have that we shouldn't pay exorbitant amounts of prices for, and then just be told they're not worth that much once we walk off the lot. I think that the auto industry has been scamming us for years, and maybe that's something we should take a stand against. California, struggling with the forest fires. It's a horrible situation there. Global warming is part of it. Hopefully they'll get it under control before too much more damage is done. This is why colleges need helicopter parents. Helicopter parents are those defined in this article that come into the school when their child needs them in a situation, and then they leave, instead of just hovering, which sometimes I would like to do, but I know my son would not like that. After years of keeping students' parents at bay, university leaders are now seeking ways to involve them. There's too many times that young people go through struggles, and a lot of it I think might be young women and the crisis that they have at school with the elevated rates and things. And I think that there's depression. I know that there's times when young people are depressed, maybe being away from home or just discouraged. I believe that my son is doing very well at college, and he seems to just be blossoming, and I'm thankful for that. But I've asked him many times, as well as I'm sure his father has. We're not together, but I'm sure that he has done the same thing. You know, the communication is open, and both of us are very willing to talk with him at any time if there's something that he needs to talk about and deal with. There's Alice Waters, award-winning chef, on the fallacy of trendy diet practices like avoiding gluten. We're somehow imagining that our problems can be solved by eating this or doing that. It's a big cultural picture that is causing us to be unhappy and struggle with food. Now, I try to eat right and exercise, and my doctor told me he'd like to see me lose 3 pounds, and this man has not known me for the last several years. I just met him, and what I told him was, well, 3 pounds would be great, but what you don't understand is that I lost 30 pounds in the last 3 to 4 years, And I think 3 more pounds is feasible, but I'm very happy with what I've already done. So I'm not going to get too discouraged about that. But I do exercise. I believe at my age that I want to be around. As much as I can do that, I want to be around for my grandchildren and possibly my great-grandchildren. That's a giant. It's called Roosbargard Smog-Free Tower. Could include Beijing, LA, and Mexico City. Right now it's in Rotterdam, and it's the ultimate air purifier. Put one of those on your campus, your college campus, and it'll clean up the air. Now this article I disagree with. Love time, but I disagree with this article. Good leaders don't have to be good. Sometimes the best bosses have to lie and manipulate to save money and jobs. Often they have to disregard concern for others. These truths may not be as inspiring as the latest wave of leadership fables, but they're backed by social science and knowledge of contemporary organizations, and they're likelier to help people lead. Having the knowledge that corporations are doing the kind of things that are not nice does not make it scientifically acceptable that this is the way good leadership should be. I was listening at Mass today, and the man who was speaking stated that he had either personally or someone he knew had visited a Marines base, but they were talking about trying to find a title for a book. And one of the statements, the questions that had been asked of the Marines was that why are they so good at what they do? Why are they the ones that go in first? Why are they so ritual and all together? And the simple answer to that was that the officers eat last. Now think about that. Great leadership, as far as the U.S. Marines are concerned, is that the officers eat last. And then the title of this man's book became Leaders Eat Last. This just amazes me that there are people out there who think that bad people make good leaders. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. Turn in the pages. Just a reminder that there is a man named Scott Kelly who spent 6 years in space and has another, 6 months, and he has another 6 months to go. They're doing all kinds of testing on him, and he has a twin down here on Earth, and they're comparing things. But sometimes we forget. He's at the International Space Station, and sometimes we forget that there are things going on in the world. And this man has been up there now. It seemed like just yesterday he left, and now it's been 6 months. And I'm very interested in finding out what they discover because of this. Bernie Sanders. For some reason, I thought he was a football player. But this article states, was it opposite day at Liberty University? Here was Bernie Sanders, who spent his 20s, when he was 20, preaching sexual liberation and social revolution, taking the stage to speak to a student body of fresh-faced Christian conservatives at the school founded by televangelist Jerry Falwell. Don't get me started on him. This says here, it's how Bernie Sanders was talking about pollsters and what's going on with Hillary and everything. It's how Bernie Sanders can join the Democratic Party in April and by August be battling for first place in Iowa and New Hampshire. He just joined the Democratic Party in April of 2015. And it says, win or lose, Sanders talks of transforming his party and remaking American politics. I remember the days when Hillary Clinton was criticized for moving to New York and becoming a senator of New York. Oh, it was all such a big deal. Let me tell you something. Joining a party, I'm wondering myself, what was he doing before that? Was he a Republican? Was he an independent? I don't know. I guess I'll have to look that up. Now, some of the things he wants, I agree with. He wants big money out of politics, provide public funding for all elections, and enact a constitutional amendment overturning the Citizens United ruling. I'm for that. Universal health care. Replace Obamacare with a single-payer Medicare for all program in the style of Canadian and Western European systems at an estimated cost of $15 trillion over 10 years. Now, I love Obamacare, and I've heard that 21% more Americans have insurance this year than last year. I know that the Canadian program is more costly, but as a Medicare recipient myself, it's like this. You pay one fee, it's over with. At least that's how I understand it. So it would depend on the type of universal care that they put in place if some politicians' hands weren't in the pile. Free public universities. Make tuition free at all public colleges and universities with state and federal subsidies of $70 billion per year. I believe that people should get an education so they can have the jobs that are there and people aren't qualified for, so that people from other countries will quit coming over here and taking those jobs. And I'm telling you something, there are a lot of people from Europe and Eurasia and other countries. God bless them, I'm not against them, but they come here, they get educated, and they take the jobs that Americans could have if they had the money to go to college, and many don't. Expand Social Security, I'm all for that. Increase payroll taxes on those making more than $250,000, raising trillions to shore up the Social Security system, and increase payments for most recipients by $65 a month. Now, $65 a month extra is not going to be a lot, but it would help. I'm very fortunate because I do make more than a lot of people who are on Social Security, and I'm thankful for that. Jobs programs. Invest $1 trillion in infrastructure and start a $5.5 billion youth jobs program, which Sanders estimates would create a total of 14 million new jobs. Not sure I understand all about that, but his policies sound good. I would say that I think a lot of them sound a lot like the other Democrats, so he's a new one. Don't know what he was doing before, but I'm still for Hillary. There he is. He's already been here, but I love that Pope. And if you haven't yet, I strongly encourage you to take the time. It's about an hour, where he addresses the United States Congress, and he just tells the truth the way it is. And let me tell you something. Boehner says he was already going to do it before the Pope got here. But Boehner is a Catholic. And after the Pope left, he resigned. I believe it was his time to go because he had been doing a lot of things that were not Christ-like while he was in position in Congress, in his job. And while the Pope was speaking, it was a dead giveaway because John Boehner kept wiping his eyes and blowing his nose. And let me tell you something, sometimes the hardest hearts can be reached by the love of God and by the truth. The right to die. California may have already made the decision. I'm not sure right now because, like I said, I'm running a couple of weeks behind, and I apologize for that. But some opponents say the conversation about end-of-life treatment in America shouldn't be about expanding a right to die, but should focus instead on the quality of end-of-life care. Some opponents warn that expanding aid in dying could lead to physician-prescribed treatments for non-terminal diseases like depression, a practice allowed in Belgium and the Netherlands. Depression can be overcome. I know that from my own experiences, and I have learned to handle it. Some days are hard, but on those good days, I am so thankful that I don't let the hard days get me down. It says here, dying is something we all have to go through, some of us sooner than we'd like to, he says. This is the guy who actually prompted the article because he wants the right to die. I think dying is a really sacred thing that happens. It's a time that's really ripe with potential for it to be peaceful. The whole point is just to give people the choice. Personally, I really believe that that choice belongs to God alone. There are ways, and many of you will disagree with me, but I know from personal experience that medical marijuana helps ease the pain that people go through when they are dying from lots of diseases. And there are other medicinal herbs that help people. There's comforting things that can be done to ease the pain that God has put on this earth. And I don't think that trying to escape the last moments that God has given us on this earth, and this is my personal opinion, and I'm not criticizing anyone else for how they feel. I believe that it's God's appointed time for us to be born, and it's God's appointed time for us to die. Why ambition isn't working for women. I'm going to read through this. It says, I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, being written about in Fortune and all these things that you would think would make someone feel really good, yet I was really unhappy. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine and she said, do you ever think about quitting? And I said, quitting? I've never quitted anything in my life. She was she was president of a publicly traded company. It just seems absurd. And she said, well, you're not happy, so what is it that you're afraid of? And that stopped me cold because my reflexive answer was afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. I'd never really thought about it, but I was afraid of what people would think. And the minute I realized I was not leaving because of what people would think, that was when I thought, wow, my definition of success is pretty messed up. And I need to get my priorities in check. And that's Lorna Borenstein, founder of Groker.com. Too many of us are concerned about what others think. That's been a main problem of mine probably most of my life because I carried a lot of guilt for things that weren't my responsibility. But there's a song sung by Mama Cass that I love. It says, make your own kind of music. And I hadn't heard that song in a long time, and one day I was listening to that, and something grabbed me deep inside, spiritually actually. It wasn't a spiritual song, but it grabbed me spiritually and said, hey, it's time for you to be who you are. Be who you are. People will like you or they won't, but at least the person they like will be the person who you really are. So be yourself, people. We have a lot of great qualities that others could find in you if you just let them shine. And it also says most people of both genders would choose true love over reaching the top of their chosen field. I would love to find true love, but I just don't think that's ever going to happen. There's a little bit about Picasso in here. And I just can't get started on that because I was dealing with that in another magazine. Some of the stuff looks so goofy. Like I said, my grandchildren could make it. I just can't see spending money on art that looks like a 3-year-old made it. Johnny Depp, one of the most versatile actors I have ever not personally known. I did stand beside a fake image of him in New York City once, and it looks like he's just casually standing there next to me, but it was just fake. It was a wax figure, but he's got a movie out called Black Mass, and I would love to see it because it is another incredible role that's so diverse from the ones he's played. I think the first one that I actually saw him in and realized who Johnny Depp was when he played the pirate. And ever since then, I connected him with Edward Scissorhands and several other movies, and I just thought, this man is really good. I usually don't talk about commercials, but there's an article, there's just a little commercial here about Kindle. And I just wanted to throw in there that I do have a book called My Turn on the Merry-Go-Round by Vicki Lynn Seward Hall Stanley, and it's available on Amazon Kindle. And my daughter also has a book called My Mommy's a Zombie. And whether she's referring to me or not, it's a really good book. So if you looked up My Turn on the Merry-Go-Round or My Mommy's a Zombie at Amazon Kindle, you'll find a good book to read. One of them is a good story that's nice for Halloween, and the other one is about the first 48 years of my life and all of the struggles that I overcame. This is the Love It or Leave It page, and I was just so shocked. On the leave it part, it was a good place to leave it. It said, people have pledged, which just is beyond me. People have pledged more than $75,000 to fund the world's first self-rolling yoga mat, designed to help yogis accomplish the easiest part of their workout. How lazy can you be? And I think spending that kind of money is illogical. Here we go again with Spock, but that's the truth. The final part of It's About Time for this week, which there'll be 2 more episodes this week as I catch up on the magazines. Abarash Bekele. She's the subject of Different. It's a new film produced by Angelina Jolie, and it talks about her life as a child bride who killed her would-be husband. Women are still being abducted in places like Ethiopia and other countries, and they are taken to be brides. She feels horrible about one of her sisters. She was abducted at 16 and married. She lives a horrible life. Her life goals were interrupted. She was a competitive marathon athlete, and now she has 4 kids. Her husband doesn't work, so she's the breadwinner of the house, and she has a very difficult life. And if that's in Ethiopia, I truly believe it. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this issue of, or this actually broadcast of It's About Time. And I look forward to seeing you just in a few days when I get to the next 2 so I can catch up. But for now, I want to say, see you later.